In one of the most ambitious identity reforms in modern British history, the UK government is pushing ahead with plans to introduce a nationwide digital ID system, a centralised way for people to prove who they are online and in person, built around a single secure digital identity. Backed by Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government, the initiative marks a fundamental shift in how citizens will interact with the state, employers, landlords, and potentially even private services. Supporters hail it as a long-overdue modernisation of a fragmented identity system, while critics warn it could open the door to surveillance, exclusion, and data misuse. As the debate heats up, understanding what's coming, and why it's controversial, has never been more important. At its core, the UK's digital ID plan is about creating a single, government-verified digital identity that people can use across multiple services and contexts. Instead of juggling a passport, driving license, birth certificate, and utility bills, citizens would have one secure ID, likely accessible via a smartphone app or web portal, to prove their identity quickly and reliably. The system is designed to replace traditional paper-based verification with a more efficient, secure, and streamlined digital alternative. By the end of the current Parliament, the government intends to make digital identity verification mandatory for right-to-work checks, meaning anyone starting a new job would need to prove their identity digitally. This system would also support right-to-rent checks, access to government benefits and services, and potentially verification for financial transactions or online services. Central to the project is the gov.uk One Login platform, a unified digital identity service under development that will allow users to prove their identity once and reuse it across government services. Linked to this is a planned digital wallet where verified credentials, like a digital passport or driving license, could be securely stored and shared when needed, along with updates to the Digital Economy Act 2017 and the Data, Use and Access Act 2025, form the legislative backbone of the scheme. Initially, the focus is on integrating digital identity into existing verification processes such as employment and immigration checks. Over time, the system will be expanded to cover more government services, with the ultimate goal of a seamless, interoperable identity platform for both public and private use. While some legal foundations are already in place, technical and logistical hurdles mean full implementation may take several years. The gov.uk One Login project, for example, has faced delays, and some reports suggest the complete system, including digital wallets and cross-sector integration, may not be fully operational until around 2028. However, key components like the mandatory employment checks are expected much sooner. The government argues that a national digital ID system is essential for modernising the state and tackling long-standing problems. Today, proving one's identity often involves a cumbersome patchwork of documents and manual checks. Digital ID would allow people to verify themselves online in seconds, removing red tape and speeding up everything from job applications to passport renewals. Second, the system is presented as a tool against fraud and illegal activity. By making identity verification digital and harder to forge, ministers claim they can significantly reduce illegal working, benefits fraud, tax evasion, and other identity-related crimes. The technology could also support more effective border control and immigration enforcement, ensuring only those with legal status can access jobs, housing, or public services. Finally, the scheme is framed as part of a broader digital transformation agenda. As more public services move online, secure digital identities are seen as a prerequisite for trust and accessibility in a digital state. The UK is currently lagging behind many European nations that already operate national digital ID systems, and policymakers argue that catching up is vital for competitiveness and security. Yet despite these claimed benefits, the digital ID plan is among the most controversial policies on the government's agenda, and for good reason. Critics fear that consolidating identity data into a single digital system could give the state, and potentially private companies, unprecedented power to track individuals' activities. Once a digital ID becomes central to everyday life, they argue, it could easily be expanded beyond its original purpose, paving the way for mass surveillance or social control. The spectre of function creep, where a system designed for one purpose gradually becomes mandatory for many others, looms large. Centralized identity databases and digital wallets could become high-value targets for hackers. A single breach might expose vast amounts of sensitive personal data. Experts warn that unless the system is designed with state-of-the-art security and robust oversight, the risks could outweigh the benefits. There are also serious concerns about digital exclusion. Millions of people in the UK either lack access to smartphones, struggle with digital literacy, or live in areas with poor connectivity. Making digital ID the default, or even mandatory, could leave these groups locked out of essential services. Critics say the government must guarantee accessible alternatives, such as physical documents or in-person verification, to prevent deepening social inequality. The UK's previous digital identity project, Gov.uk Verify, cost over £200 million before being scrapped due to poor adoption and technical flaws. The political response has been sharply divided. While Labour Party ministers insist the scheme is a pragmatic response to real problems, opposition parties have accused the government of overreach. Reform UK and elements of the Conservative Party frame the policy as an attack on civil liberties, while the Liberal Democrats have also raised concerns about privacy and state power. Organisations like Big Brother Watch and Liberty argue that mandatory digital identity checks would undermine fundamental freedoms and erode the principle that citizens should not have to show their papers to access basic services. Surveys show that Britons are among the least trusting populations in Europe when it comes to digital identity systems. Only around a third of respondents in one major poll said they trusted the idea of government-run digital IDs, a figure that underscores the scale of the trust gap ministers must bridge. To address some of these concerns, the government has introduced a series of legal and technical safeguards. The Office for Digital Identities and Attributes, a new regulatory body under the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, will oversee the system and enforce compliance with strict security and privacy standards. The government is also developing a trust framework, a set of rules and technical standards designed to ensure that digital ID providers are secure, transparent, and accountable. Only certified providers will be allowed to operate, and users will have visibility into who is requesting their data and why. The Data, Use and Access Act 2025 further provides legal backing for these safeguards, establishing clear powers and limitations for how identity data can be shared and used. If the scheme goes ahead as planned, its impact on everyday life will be far-reaching. Anyone applying for a job will need to present a verified digital ID as part of the right-to-work process. Renewing a passport, applying for benefits, or proving eligibility for healthcare could all become quicker and simpler. Over time, the same digital ID could be used for private sector transactions too, for example, verifying age when buying alcohol online or logging into banking services. The UK is hardly alone in pursuing digital identity. Countries like Estonia, Sweden, and Spain have long operated national ID systems that are widely used and trusted. These models show that digital identity can work, but only with robust privacy protections, strong legal frameworks, and clear limits on scope. The UK's own track record is less encouraging. Gov.uk Verify's failure highlights the technical, cultural, and political challenges of building a trusted identity system. Many experts argue that success this time will depend not just on technology, but on how well the government engages with the public, builds transparency into the system, and enshrines rights and safeguards in law. The next 18 months will be critical. Legislation underpinning the scheme is making its way through Parliament of the United Kingdom, where MPs and peers will debate key issues like consent, oversight, and data security. Public consultations will shape the final framework, while technical pilots and procurement decisions will lay the foundations for the system's rollout. Observers will be watching for signs of scope creep, especially whether the ID becomes mandatory for renting property, accessing healthcare, or voting. The reaction of the Information Commissioner's Office and the courts will also be crucial, particularly if legal challenges are brought against the scheme on privacy or human rights grounds. The UK's digital ID plan is one of the most consequential policies of the decade. If implemented responsibly, it could revolutionise how citizens interact with the state, cutting bureaucracy, reducing fraud, and making services more accessible. But if mishandled, it risks undermining privacy, widening inequality, and eroding public trust in government. Ultimately, the success or failure of the project will depend on how well the government can strike a balance between convenience and control, efficiency and liberty. Digital identity is not just a technical challenge, it is a political and ethical one. As Britain steps into a future where proving who you are is just a tap away, the question is not only whether the system will work, but whether the public will trust it. The answer will shape the relationship between the individual and the state for generations to come.